Welcome to AI Powered RevOps, where the learning never stops. Hosted by Sandy Robinson, she's leveling up your ops. From data to deals, she reveals how AI really pops. Real talk, real playbooks, no fluff, just jaw drop. So plug in, turn it up, let the insights flow. You're tuned to AI Powered RevOps. Now let's start the show.
Hey everyone, I'm Sandy Robinson, your host of AI Powered RevOps. Today, I'm joined by someone who lives right at the intersection of analytics and revenue strategy, Prudhvi. Prudhvi leads revenue operations and strategy at Flex Compute, where he's focused on building a RevOps framework for highly technical engineering teams. His background spans from revenue intelligence and analytics, roles at Sprinto, Funnelcast Plus, experience as a teaching and graduate research fellow at Boston University's Questrom School of Business. He holds a Master of Science in Business and Analytics and Operations from Boston University, along with a Bachelor of Technology in Computer Science. If you've ever wondered how to turn messy data into practical revenue decisions, or how to build strong RevOps foundations inside complex technical organizations, you're going to get a lot from this conversation. Prudhvi, welcome to the show. I am so excited to have you. I met you a couple of months ago at a conference. I think it was in New Orleans, right? Where we were?
Yeah.
So I've been wanting to talk to you since then. So thank you so much for being on the show.
Well, the pleasure is mine, Sandy. Thank you for having me. And yeah, whenever I think of you or read something about it, I think the image of Trinity from Matrix flashes, because I still remember the cool walk-in you made at the RevOps AF in New Orleans. But yeah, I'm excited to be here with you today.
I love it. I love it. Well, I gave a little background, but I'd love for you to tell the listeners a little bit about your background, industry, and just to kind of give them an idea of what's happening with you.
Absolutely. So, as you rightly pointed, I'm right now at the intersection of data and operations. To be a little broad, I am trying to set up the revenue systems at Flex Compute, a company I recently started working with, I think 6 months ago from now. So, Flex Compute, unlike any other business I've worked with, is a highly technical company. They make a very cool engineering product, and the cool factor is actually what got me interested with them. But it's also challenging at the same time because it's a core enterprise driven business. The volume is slightly lower, but the impact is greater. And I am focusing as a generalist to make sure that they have a right path to scale. We have big ambitions at the company, and I'm trying to make sure that we have a structured and scaled path towards reaching that revenue goal. So that's what I'm doing at Flex Compute. But I come from a typical SaaS B2B background. I started actually off with a startup of my own right after my undergrad from India. Very funny story. I've always been interested and fascinated about solving bigger problems for the world, the ones which have greater impact on everybody in the world. And maybe I just picked too big of a problem in the beginning. I was following a professor at Harvard who's called David Sinclair. He was working on anti-aging, and I really thought that that could open doors for a lot of problems and solutions around 2020. And that's when I started building out a product that could help everybody up level their health and just make sure they're on top of it with data driven insights. A year and a half into it, I realized, well, building a product is not the only thing businesses need. We also need revenue. We also need the systems that scale the product. And that's where I really fumbled. And that's the first introduction for me towards RevOps, where I understood that, oh, this is actually a function that really helps take that crazy, a product into the market and make sure that there is a future for the product. That's how I started off with RevOps.
I love it. I love that story too. And that kind of ties into the personal interests about the anti-aging. I love that. I think you should circle back to that because some of us would love to benefit from that. But I love hearing about your passion, and I think we're all humans, and everybody has this job of RevOps. But how do you operate in your daily life? And so I appreciate you sharing that story, and it kind of ties your personal into your work. So I really appreciate it. We're all on this AI journey, right? Everybody's at different stages of adoption. We have, just like with anything else new, we have early adopters. Some companies are more conservative, so they're a little more hesitant, especially if you're an industry like, say insurance or something like that, where you're going to have kind of a late adoption. So you're definitely a tech forward kind of guy. You have computer science degree. How did you get started with AI? Even if it's not in RevOps, you can kind of go either way. But how did you start diving into AI?
Sure. So I think AI, or what I like to call it at the core, machine learning, was a natural extension of my computer science bachelor days. Because as part of program, I was working with data models and just trying to understand how a system thinks. And once you start at that point where how a system thinks, I think the whole understanding becomes very easy. So I think one of the most first practical use cases I have done is a clustering model using machine learning. Think of it as like different people roaming around, and you want to group them into certain baskets to make sure that you understand all the combined characteristics of that group. I used it primarily to form clusters of my ICPs at my first startup, but it was just a simple ML clustering algorithm which just clubs people on their interests, basically. That was the inception of how today we call AI, but back then we used to call it ML. And yeah, it's just evolved from there.
Definitely. And you bring up a great point, right? This is the evolution of AI is new, right? We have lots of new tools and LLMs and, things kind of, agentic AI. There's something new every day, but machine learning's been around. And especially for folks like you who are into computer science. And my son is an engineering major, and he's a computer science minor. I can definitely relate to some of the things that he's doing. By the way, he's 14. That's a different story, so we can talk about that offline. But anyway, like, I think that's a great point, though. You've seen the value in what you've done in the past, and I think that's a great foundation for RevOps. Not everybody has a computer science background, so obviously I don't think that's necessarily needed to dive into how does AI play in RevOps today. So can you tell us a little bit about some of the things that you're working on now that in the RevOps space?
Absolutely. And just to ponder upon the AI thought, Sandy, I think today it's more than easier ever to just play around with these AI tools, right? And I give some of the credit to ChatGPT, who's made it like the popular household name.
Mhm.
It's actually improved the adoption, right? Now people look up to it and ask questions and use it as the personal assistant, right? And
Mhm.
one of the things I've actually noticed that's helped me is just really being experimentative about it. There are a
Mhm.
ton of things I don't know. I'm learning every day. And what's become easier now in just go and ask a system that, hey, how do you get the right ICP? How do
Mhm.
you approach the right prospects? And it just becomes easier from here, I guess. I think we're fortunate to be in the time where the world is moving at a very fast pace. And I think the sky is the limit from here. But to get back to what I'm working on, thanks for the question. It's really interesting for me to
Yeah.
talk about it because uh, when I joined RevOps 4 years ago, it was more operational, just making sure that
Mhm.
customers are paying on time. We have a way to make get payments and just make sure that reports are clean and they look shiny for investors.
Forecasts are good, reports are nice, they're clean. Yeah, I get it.
Yeah. But as I worked my way through multiple organizations, I realized the potential this function or department has. We sit in a unique position where we have access to all business data within the company. You can literally be the brain of a company when you have such level of access a RevOps person has, right? And that led me to thinking, oh, if I have this access, how can I best use it for the company to grow? And that's when I'm kind of working on a project which sounds like more like a CIA for a company, which is like the Central Intelligence Wing. And what you really do is you just join data and operations to inform the execution that this is the most optimal way this company can perform at this point in time. Uh, Now, some of it might be still experimentative. That hey, you can say that this is the segment I want to work on. I feel that we can make most revenue from this set of customers, or this set of prospects. What's the best way to deal with them? What are the product level changes we need to make? So all of this is very valuable and crucial information that lives in every company. Now, most of us on business side do not realize that this data is being captured. We look at, oh, what characteristics are being captured, are they company fields, are they contact fields? But on the other hand, your engineering and data teams are already capturing the user behavior. They're capturing how people interact with your product. And when you mix that data with the prospects you're approaching, I think you're sitting on a gold mine. Someone who's operating at a revenue operations level has the flexibility and has the ability to build a system which is more like a plug and play, and any executive can walk in and say that, hey, how do we make 10 million next year?
Hmm.
And you're like, give me 1 minute. I go to the system, I understand what the data says, and data says this, I have this intuition, we mix this, and you have a baseline strategy to hit your goal. So I'm working on a system as such to set it up for flex compute, because we're highly data driven, and I think this is a great addition to the RevOps future at the company.
I love it because you're right. We have so much data from our engineering teams. If you're in SaaS, you're going to have all of the customer data on the back end and understand how they're buying, how they're making decisions, deriving intent signals for things like upsells and renewals. Oftentimes in SaaS companies with a long selling cycle, they may have already quit on you and found, gone out for RFP and you don't know, right? What is that, like quiet quitting, or they already broke up with you and they're cheating on you, and you don't know it yet, but maybe the data can tell us that. So maybe can you dive in a little bit more how somebody in RevOps might get started on that? Because like for me, that sounds amazing, right? And there's access to data, working with product teams and engineering teams. How might somebody get started to try to leverage some of that data to make more informed decisions on a forecast, or to maybe utilize that to go find a new ICP? Maybe you could create a new ICP out of that. So can you dive in a little bit more on how one might get started with that?
Sure. And just a disclaimer before that, I mean, all of this really sounds shiny and possible only when the data is, I'd say, at least 50% accurate and clean looking, right?
Only
I think,
50? Oh my gosh.
yeah,
That's a good point. And I think the foundations of RevOps are still the same. If you have bad data, you're going to get bad results. So you can slap whatever AI on top of anything, but you're going, it's garbage in, garbage out. So thanks for pointing that out, because if you're at a company whose data is mushy, fuzzy, it may not give you a great result.
yeah. And I say this because I really look at AI or any generative model uh, in comparison with a human, a smart human, right? It is only as good as the amount of information it can see and access and make a decision. Now, no matter how smart a person is, they can't read all the variables, no matter how easy it is for them to understand. They can't just look at that amount of information and say that this is the best way to do it. Now, we just AI is nothing but getting that brains together, so that it records all that information and it accesses that information to give you a decision. Can you and I do that? Absolutely, but only to a limited certain amount of data, right? Because today we have more data than ever. We're just using the system, and I think the easiest way to get started for someone in RevOps is just to make sure that you have data in the right places, and all of that is feeding into a central system. Because, for example, we use HubSpot, and I'm a great fan of the product. Uh, HubSpot has evolved in terms of how much data it allows you to capture today. They have agents, they have expertise around data. I think since they acquired Clearbit, they're also enhancing data. Uh, but if you plug in your product data into HubSpot, which is also possible through APIs and integrations, if you plug in your ZoomInfo data, if you use something like ZoomInfo or any other tool, now you're looking at a much bigger database, right? And it is as simple as just asking the system, hey, I see this deal for 10K. Uh, do you know what are the risk factors in it? Now, a year ago, it is still clingy. I wouldn't trust the data or wouldn't trust the recommendation the system gives you. But today, I can confidently say it's more accurate. It can
Hmm.
actually tell you, hey, you know what? This rep named Bob did create this 10K deal, but it's still in early stages. So you can't expect it to be closed in the next 30 days because your data says that deals typically get closed in a 60 days period. At the same time, because we've connected it with web analytics, the system also says that this person who's at the company you're targeting is also looking at your competitor products. He's also visited these web pages in the last maybe 10 days. He's also checked out your pricing multiple times, which signals to me that he might like the product, but is a little hesitant about the budget he has. So I inform my sales rep that, hey, you know what, when you go to the next meeting, just make sure that pricing is not a hurdle for them. Let's cross that hurdle. If they like the product, we're happy to offer discounts, because from an executive level or a business level, discounts are something all of us leverage in SaaS, right? So I think for anybody in RevOps to get started with, use AI as a layer on your core data, which will help you bring out new and fresh insights. And trust me when I say this, the executives will love you for doing that,
Hmm.
because they like hearing insights, they like hearing intel, and every piece you give it to them really makes sense.
That's huge. And just going back to that example of Zoom info and your deal data, the forecasting data, and was there a third one? You brought in some product data to that as well, usage
Yep.
data. So
Yep.
you're then combining like intent signals from Zoom info and then the forecasting info and then other pieces of data, and you're making some sort of sense of those. How are you pushing that to the sales team? Are you, is that in the form of a chat bot that they're asking, or it's telling them, like, how is that actually, how is that information actually being deployed to your team?
Sure. So I like to follow a simple adoption method whenever we try to introduce something new, at least to teams I'm a part of. First and foremost, build these systems with your audience inside of it. Just making sure that salespeople are also involved at every step of evolution, because uh, we just do not want to make something which actually solves the problem, but then rub it on top of salespeople,
Right.
because they wouldn't obviously enjoy it, right?
Yeah.
So the first part of adoption is basically just creating a static report of the information and then sharing it with your pilot team to make sure that, hey, do you think these insights would make your job easier? Would it actually help you sell more, or are these kind of like just more operational tasks on you, or more time you would waste rather than speaking with the prospect? And when you get that first bit of insight or feedback from them, that gives you the lever to understand what is the best way that they'd like to consume data. And no salesperson is alike, and I think that's why we hire a lot of diverse people, because they sell in different ways. uh, but then as a company, it's really great to understand that we want to have a structured way of passing this information, right? So if my sales folks say that it's easy for them to have a chatbot to interact with, where they can just go and ask that, hey, I'm speaking with this customer, how do I best make a proposal for them? And if it answers to them, some of them like that. Some of my salespeople personally like that. The other ones are not more chatty about it than like, hey, can you make sure that I get an automated report of this information once in a week, or twice a week, Mondays and Wednesdays. And today, I don't have to say that that's too much work for me. I can just automate that with an agent. So I
Mhm.
don't blame their ask. It's become much easier for them. But also, I just make sure that if they prefer that information to come to them in that format, I'd rather just give it to them, because if that helps them perform better, and we're all happy. So it really depends on what they want. But at the same time, just tie that back to the company and make sure that even if it's reports, even if it's chatbot, everything is at one place, starting from one system, so that you can troubleshoot and fix things when they break.
I love that advice, and it's really enablement 101, right? You're getting the early adopters in, you're getting their feedback, getting their buy-in, making it usable for the team, and adjusting, because you have different, like you said, people may want to engage one way. It could be generational too. I mean, those are definitely different factors to consider. And I like what you said about one system. What I've personally seen is everybody's making chatbots, and they're like, hey, you should use this, or here's, especially teams where you've got revenue teams, and then you have product teams over here, and product teams have all the engineers, and they're building really cool stuff, and they're like, hey, sales, here's a cool thing, and so how do you work through that in your organization? Especially being a tech organization, how do you handle that to try to kind of keep it focused?
No, this is a great question, Sandy. I think most of us at RevOps right now struggle with this. I'll give you an example of how I started at Flex Compute with the same problem, right? The first week of joy when I joined, the first proposal on my table is that we already have a Zoom Info contract. It's time for renewal. Our reps are asking for sales nav. It's time to sign up with them. And it's only my first week. I am barely understanding the business model. I'm barely trying to understand what the ICP is, and I'm already tasked to make a decision about which tool we have to use. uh, and the approach I took then is to push that decision to 15 days from that time, and just try to understand, okay, these tools have great capabilities. They're evolving. They're big companies. They're legacy competitors. Uh, but then, are we using them to an extent we're paying the money for? uh, sure, it sounds crazy that they offer 100 things that you can leverage, but what really matters is how many of them are you actually leveraging, right? uh,
I'm
uh,
laughing. I'm literally laughing because uh, I'm I'm dealing with that exact scenario right now, and have in previous companies. In they are legacy tools. They have some new capabilities, but just like anything else, if the salesperson isn't diving in and leveraging it, it's a waste of money. You can have all the tools you want, but if people don't actually use them, and the human element is required for SalesNet, you have to do the work. You have to get in there and run the queries and do all the stuff. And are there better ways these days? I think it's a great tool, but it may not be the necessity these days, right?
No, absolutely, you're right. And we have more access to information than ever. Like, you don't have to buy a tool to get that information. Some of it is publicly available. Some of it, as you mentioned, just requires a little more time and effort to go search for that person. And it completely depends on a salesperson's motivation or interest, right?
Hmm.
Uh, but then, for this exact problem, I think the optimal solution is to just make sure that whatever tools you shop around with, just make sure they talk to your CRM primarily. Because if they don't talk to your CRM, you might walk yourself into a big trap, right?
Hmm.
uh, Even if they have a couple of capabilities which are lagging, just make sure that it talks to your CRM.
Hmm.
uh, on a second and third level, talks to more and more systems you operate on, which you can't change. Because getting data together is the biggest challenge before you wrap it around with an AI and answer your questions, right? If my model cannot read something which is coming from a different tool, I can never leverage the gold mine of data that it gives me.
Right.
So today, how I look at these tools is either you, if you're still building your RevOps organization and you're not very technical, or you need support, I would still say go and get a decent enough tool which solves your problems to a certain extent. But if you are curious, and if you are ready to review, get your hands dirty a little, I'd say build a tool. And that
Hmm.
is what I'm constantly doing at my job today. uh, Today we have more access to building these small internal SaaS tools which help our business run smoother and faster. uh, and I think I've just built one over the last weekend using a system called Replit, which just cost you, I think, $20 a month to build, deploy, and use a fully functional SaaS tool internally. Uh, I was just building it out of necessity for my product data, because we
Hmm.
have this huge system that our engineers operate on, which records all the product level data, but it's hard for my business users to comprehend that and interact with it. And I mean, we all know that business users don't like to spend much time with these tools or get more complex about their features. What they like to see is simple, clear data they can understand and act upon. Now, how do you bridge the gap? You have information, you have your users. How do you bridge the gap? That's where today's AI tools or AI tool building softwares come in picture. Uh, eh, Replit, Retool. There are a lot of options today. Now, what you do is you just go there. You just say, "Hey, I have this data. These are my users. Can you build me a system which helps them talk to each other?" And in roughly 15 minutes, you have a first version. How fascinating is that? I mean,
Right.
6 or 7 months ago, when I looked at the same problem, it took me 15 days to create a PRD of the
Hmm.
same tool, 15 days to talk about the requirements and the PRD with my implementation team. And they would say, "Hey, we are busy right now, so maybe we'll build this tool for you next quarter." And that
Right.
seeps into next quarter, and it
Right.
takes half an year to get that tool up and running. Today you just have uh, $20 and you build it in 15 minutes.
Right.
And it
And
and the
you
best
don't
part,
even need to know Python or Java or anything like that. You can just have a tool build the tool.
absolutely, I mean, you
Yeah.
don't need any coding experience, any coding
Right.
expertise. You just articulate the problem well so that it iterates. And
Right.
tools like Replit, they also have this feature of testing and giving you output. Because there is a notion that these tools don't actually build professional tools, which is not accurate, I'd say. Because sure, it does give you a first V1 version which is not so great, but then you can just say that, "Hey, you know what, the menu bar on the left doesn't look clear, can you enhance it? I'd like to see a drop down of my customers if I click on it. I'd like to see a graph of how my customers are using the product." And I mean, the possibilities are infinite. I mean, you just tell the system what you want to see, and it just builds those in real time. And I think this is like the best thing that's happened to me this year.
I can see your excitement, and I I just see the tremendous time and innovation, and just how far ahead we can get compared to even a year ago if we were having this conversation. You have a technical background, and I think I was kind of joking like, oh, you don't even need to know Python or something like that, but I think you do need to have an understanding of, you know, technical grasp on, you know, programming, basic computing, and engineering. It doesn't mean you need to be an engineer or a compu science major, but I think there needs to be a level of technical ability to get the outcome you're looking for, right? So, how do you recommend, because not every RevOps leader, or you might have a big team, like, do you recommend somebody hires for that role, or they teach themselves? Like, how do you, like, what are your thoughts around that? Because for some folks, it may not come as easy, or it may not be as natural as it is for you.
Uh, no, I think definitely, Sandy. I think I'm a little biased because, as you mentioned, I come from this background, and consciously or unconsciously, I have a little comfort around it.
Mm-hmm.
but to also give credit and understand, maybe, let's say someone who's never looked at code, or who doesn't even know how that works. I say there is still some possibility of you going at least as far as creating a picture of what you want to see running, right? We all have this imagination that, hey, I want this perfect tool where I want this section on my left, this section on my right, but then we try to draw it, and then that's where we stop. But today AI can, I think, enhance it a little more and say, if you want that picture to be up and running, these are things you have to do. Now, I think all companies have their engineering teams, no matter which SaaS product they're building. Apart from, or even better, is you go to them with this digital image, or digital requirement, rather than that paper I was talking about before. I think
Mm-hmm.
that itself is a little improvement in this space. Uh, if you don't know anything about code, and if you rather not try and go there, I would still just build a prototype by just prompting, nothing else, just prompting,
Mm-hmm.
and then taking that system to one of my fellow engineers at work, or anybody on the infrastructure team, and saying that, hey, I tried this app builder, and this is what it gave me. Can you help me navigate from here? And they'd love to help you. I mean, we
Mm-hmm.
all have access to this resource in the company, and it's just that, just be open and free to ask about it. And uh, I say this with a little pinch of salt. I think I've seen my peers operating in the space too, and sometimes most of us are held back with that idea that, oh, would I look like a fool if I ask about this?
Mm-hmm.
I'm a manager of RevOps, I'm a director of RevOps. Would I be looked down upon if I say that I don't know how the system works? Absolutely not.
Yeah.
Absolutely not. That's just an assumption we're all making in minds. And the more open we are, the more questions we ask, I think it makes everybody's job easier. And I would say, for someone who's a little uncomfortable with looking at code or doesn't want to understand it, ask for help internally first.
Mm-hmm.
That is the biggest lever most companies offer for their employees.
I love that. That's such a great point because for a lot of reasons, it gets you to get your hands dirty a little bit, right? So there's nothing worse than going to somebody in product or engineering and say, "Oh, can you do this for me?" versus, "Hey, I was messing around with this. Can you check it out for me?" There's a huge difference in that, and I think it's a big credibility builder. The other thing is like, I ask my 14-year-old first sometimes, when I'm like, hey, I'm working on this. And but seriously though, it is just jumping in and getting your hands dirty. I know for me, I listened to a book probably about 6 months ago called the AI Driven Leader. I think it is the AI Driven Leader. I'll put the link in the show notes. And it really kind of changed how I was using AI just on a personal level, and versus going to it instead of Google, which is, I think, what 90% of people are doing right now, which is also why the advertising landscape and marketing landscape is completely changing. If you're noticing as you're going into ChatGPT or a Claude or Grok or whatever you're using, um, but it changed the way that I think about looking at AI as more of a, not just a task completer, efficiency, but more of a thought partner and give me feedback on something. Because I think there's also confirmation bias that we all get, like, hey, I'm going to put this in here and it's going to tell me I'm great, it's going to tell me I had a great idea, like, your little buddy that you have. So um I think there's a level of, like you said, try it, build something, and work with those teams. Especially if you're in a tech company, a SaaS company, you're going to have folks across the organization. And as you mentioned before, in RevOps, we have the privilege of being able to work across all the silos in the organization. You bring up some really good points, and I hope that folks that are listening just get in there, get your hands dirty. If you're on that earlier adopter side or less technical side, depending on the size of the team, might want to hire somebody, right? I mean, that's always a good move too, right? Like, how do you? I know you mentioned build, but maybe there's in some orgs, bigger orgs, maybe a buy is a better solution, and then you hire a builder. I don't know. But how has you sound like you're really doing a lot. You mentioned your approach to adoption and how you're getting your peers, in the sales team involved. I mean, is this something that's kind of become? You mentioned like the what is it, the RevOps brain, build the brain, the operating system. Has this become like a norm in your company? Like, tell me a little bit about where how the adoption's gone, and with things that you're building.
Yeah, right. And when I say this, I think I believe that RevOps is very subjective to each business model and company. No matter how hard we try to generalize the structure of success for it, it does really depend on the business model at the core. And uh, when I was hired at this company, a little secret between you and me and listeners is that the company didn't know what RevOps is.
Yep.
They were just hiring someone who could fix their sales, CX, and marketing problems because they were seeing early signals of how that would fail when they hit the revenue number they want to hit end of the year. So
Hmm.
they just wanted someone who can just sit tight and tell them that you're doing all right, let me fix this for you. So when I joined, I realized that, oh, this is, I mean, the problem statement is not new. It's what most people do on a daily basis. They firefight, they fix things, but I would really get exhausted if I just continue doing this for the rest of my life without creating a brain or informing someone who's going to come after me, or any evolution that's going to happen. How could I inform them of all the progress I made and the company has made and does want to make in the future? That is when I started to think about a tool or a system which helps the whole company look at it and say that, you know what, we are doing this right. We are 80% there on this problem. We are not doing great on this problem. And this system has eyes and ears across all the data in the company. Nothing new, just the data we have in the company, and then is helping you look at the problems and ask the right questions at the right point in time. Because if you don't do that, then those problems and questions become blockers for your revenue growth. Now the company I work with, my founding team says that, is this even possible? Like, it sounds really cool. Is this even possible? And then as an answer to that, I just build small stuff and show them prototypes of it and say that, hey, this is how it would look like if it were a reality. I can make this. I need these resources, if you can allot. And that's how we communicate on a weekly basis, right? uh, but then I think the whole function, the RevOps as a whole, is also evolving into this space naturally. We've heard about GTM ops lately. We're hearing about GTM engineering. I think we're naturally, as an industry, moving towards operator-led process to data-led process. No matter what we call it, I think the future is not far away where everybody in the RevOps domain would just look at systems and say that, you know what, this is a good bit of intel I can give my team, and just pass that intel on to the right people within your team. We're not far away from there. Most companies are doing it. A lot of them are catching up, and maybe in next 5 6 years, I think everybody in RevOps will be there.
Mm, I love that. Do you think that in 5 years, a CRM like we see it today is really going to be a thing?
I'm glad you asked that, Sandy, because I just got that question last week at my work, that, hey, we pay so and so for this tool. Do we really need it? uh, there is no short answer to this, but I would still say the concept of CRM would still exist 5 years from now. It might not be a tool you would buy from a big SaaS company out there, but the whole idea that you need a system to operate which interacts with your sales stakeholders, marketing stakeholders, and customers does need to exist. Even for an AI to run, operate on, it needs a base layer. And I would say, I think CRM is the most important tool anybody in the industry, in RevOps, should be leveraging. That's the first place you can leverage AI. That's your first experimentation ground. that should also be one source of truth for business, ideally for all businesses. I know for some business it is not, but unless you have a unifying system, even if you don't call it a CRM, it should act like that relationship model which connects your customers, prospects, your internal users, your salespeople, everybody. And at least I can't imagine a world without such a system. Uh, Maybe we don't buy it, or we don't pay a premium for it, but we still would have a system which helps us operate with all the stakeholders.
I really appreciate your insights on that. Yeah, and I definitely think it's going to evolve rapidly over the next 5 years. You've been there how long? Did you say 6 months? About six
Yep,
months.
6 months now. Yeah.
So in I've been at my company for about a year, and it was similar. There was never a RevOps, and it does take time as a RevOps leader to teach and get folks aligned on what RevOps is. And it sounds like you've done a great job of that. You've put forward some of these initiatives. So what are the leadership's expectations of you now, that you've kind of put some of these processes in place, you've built some tools? What are the expectations of you?
Yeah, and to be fair and honest, I am also still working on that question, Sandy. I know the sensing from leadership on what they want me to become, but I'm also understanding what's the best way for me to grow, right? uh,
Hmm.
and I've never been fast I mean picky about the title, or what I get called, because I just get called by my name at work and nobody else cares, right?
Get stuff done, right? That's my
Yeah.
title. Yeah, like execute.
I wish that title were more popular enough for other companies to understand, but yeah. So in fact, that's the route I'm taking.
Hmm.
I really like this company. I really like the problem they're solving. Uh,
Hmm.
uh, uh, I'm sorry I didn't talk about it, but just to give a one-liner, today it's more than ever easy to build a software or innovate in software space, but it's incredibly hard to do it on hardware. I can just create a mock of a CRM in a day in an AI tool and tell you how that works. But I can't create a moving car or a rocket without the resources or the amount it takes. But what we do is then make that simulation easy. You can just go into software and see how hardware material interacts with environment. What are the reactions, and we're just trying to make hardware innovation as easy as software innovation. And I think that has huge potential. The world is going to love it. uh, so I love the business model, I love what they make, and now just trying to see how can I take this company from point A to point B and point C. uh,
Hmm.
if that asks of me to be a revenue operator, I'm happy to be that. If that asks me to be a business analyst, I'm happy to do that. So I'm really trying to understand, okay, from a business side of things, how do we push for excellence on revenue and uh, process at this point? Because a lot of companies at this stage make a mistake on processes. They just keep building, grinding, and one fine day they realize, oh, this is not scalable anymore, or it's a problem for us, and then you start hiring someone to fix that for you. I'm glad the company hired me early on to be cognizant about the fact that we want to grow to this stage and also make sure that grow further from there. So
Hmm.
I think they want me to just stick along and make sure that the plan comes to form a good picture.
Right. I mean, and you bring up a great point. It's doesn't matter the title. At the end of the day, our job is to drive revenue and scalable revenue. So starting early when you're building processes that can scale, I think is just a good basic foundation that you pointed out people should remember. And if you start making things too complicated and you start to hit a growth spurt, you're going to have to go back and rebuild. So building these things for growth, for scale, from the beginning is a really smart approach. And it sounds like you're taking all the right steps to do that. So, really, kudos to you for hitting the ground running there. I think this is a great story to share. And, it sounds like you are able to work cross functionally across the organization. And before we jump into the rapid fire questions, which I do want to get here in the next couple of minutes, but how do you, when you talked about adoption, you talked about, some of the things that you're deploying and working on, but how do you influence the broader organization when it comes to working on your AI initiatives in RevOps?
Uh, Great question, Sandy. Again, I think if you just keep building and never get the buy-in, it doesn't make sense, right? Uh,
Hmm.
I follow the principle of involving your audience while you build. Number A. Sorry, first point. Second is that whatever you're building or any AI use case, do you personally or genuinely feel that that is going to make someone's life easier? Then it's a no-brainer. You just at least start towards it. But then a lot of time builders are biased towards how they want things to work, right? Unconsciously or subconsciously, we just follow that path. So having a user right by your side when you build actually makes your life a lot easier because they can tell you if they would like to use it or not. For example, when I was building this product metric system, I was thinking of all the perfections I can get there, all the charts I can get there. And then when I took my V1 to my one of my CSMs, and they said, "Hey, that's great, but I wouldn't be looking at it until 6 months from now." And like, okay, that saves time for me, saves time for you. So let's
Right.
just build what you really, really want. And I think to some extent you need leadership's buy-in to, let the company follow this AI open structure or AI open workflows.
Hmm.
We're very fortunate that at my company, the founders are very, very open to it. And in fact, encourage everybody in the team across different functions to just utilize it to the best extent. I think we're far away from the fact that AI can be right or wrong, or
Hmm.
is it okay? Is it good or not? Today, I think just if it helps you, just go for it. Just use it, and if you fail, fail fast, and you'll just pick up and use a better tool.
I love it. I love it. Great insights there. I want to jump into the rapid fire questions because I'm doing this with every guest. And just to note, I used AI to research and understand what the top questions RevOps leaders are asking today. And I reframe those into rapid fire questions. So I'm trying to get everybody's input on this because I think it's what's buzzing around out there. So, first question: what's the very first place you tell a RevOps team to start with AI?
Getting your data clean and running a wrapper on your CRM. Easy things first to do.
Love it. Is RevOps data actually AI ready today, or are most teams just automating garbage?
Both cases, but I think mostly we're ready because AI is now also able to backfill and update data based on accurate data. You just need to tell it how to do it. So I think we are better than where we were a year ago.
100%. What's one AI use case in RevOps you've seen actually work in the real world?
Today, I'd say account summaries and insight generation. I would take like an hour at least to completely research a company. AI will do it in a minute or two. So
Definitely. How do you measure real ROI from AI in RevOps?
we can't disagree on the north star of revenue. At least that's 12 months down the line, 18 months down the line. If it's not growing, then it's not helping. Second, do you make everybody's life easier or not? I think that reflects on how they work and the feedback they give to you. Objective revenue and subjective feedback.
I like it. Will AI replace RevOps, or will RevOps leaders who use AI replace those who don't?
Definitely the latter, I would say. AI is always going to be a tool. It's going to be your support system. It's just going to add more value to you as a person because you are the ones solving the problems. AI is not. Executives just cannot go to ChatGPT or Gemini and say that, hey, fix my CRM. That's not possible today. I don't think it's going to be possible in the next 2 3 years, at least. And even if it's possible, RevOps will tackle much higher and difficult problems. So it's never going to get wiped out of business.
Awesome. Great conversation, Prudhvi. I really appreciate you taking the time. Thank you so much for joining the show. This has been another episode of AI Powered RevOps. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Sandy.